Hi, everybody. So I'm going to have to talk kind of quickly. I already recorded this once. I went past the 10-minute mark. So sorry if I'm going really fast, but I want to get in this information about surveys as a data collection method. I chose surveys because I use them a lot in my classroom, and I really wanted to dig a little bit deeper to find out uh, basically what professionals who research have to say about surveys. So, as far as surveys go, they are a little bit more formal of a mechanism. They are pre planned. Typically, um, people who generate surveys are really taking the time to find questions that are going to work well with the kind of data that they're trying to collect. In the data text, it says surveys can give students a space to share their thoughts and opinions about a teaching or strategy, a unit, or their knowledge about particular subject matter. It works as a pre and post test data collection option. So these 2 points here are some of the best benefits of surveys. That yes, we are trying to get students involved in their education, so we're going to want their thoughts and opinions, and surveys can really, really help with that, and it's a quick and easy way to get their feedback without putting them on the spot, and calling them out in front of a class or just making them feel uncomfortable. So it allows them to give those thoughts and opinions. And as I said, it also works as a pre and post test data collection option because you can give a survey at the beginning of a unit and say, how much do you know about this content area? What do you want to learn about it? Questions like that. And then you can give the same survey at the end, and it can really help measure student growth and engagement throughout that unit. Another benefit about surveys is that they can also work with children or adults. So there really is no age restriction on a survey. They can be given verbally or in a written format, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later when I get to strengths. But this is really a big benefit of surveys is that you're not limited to modality here. They can be simple, they can be complex, open-ended, closed response, or a combination of all of those different types of surveys. You can have a 3-question survey. How much do you feel like you understood this lesson? Do you need to come see me during remediation time? Do you think I went too fast through the lesson? Or you can go into something that's a little bit more complex. What did you like about this lesson and why? Um, what suggestions do you have for improvement? If you were to come to see me during remediation, what would we work on? What would benefit you? So you can really change the complexity of a survey, which is nice. And then you can change the way that you want your participant to respond, whether you give them choices or whether you give them the chance to do an open-ended response where they write their own answer. Sometimes surveys and rating scales are compared, but they're a little bit different. Yes, both of them is collecting data based on the thoughts and opinions of a participant, but rating scales really focus on strengths and weaknesses, whereas a survey is going to aim to get a little bit more thorough data. And it's not just looking for strengths and weaknesses. It's not just like a rank this unit on a scale of 1 to 5 of did you like it or didn't you like it? And then another big benefit coming back to this first point here is that you can have a lot of modalities with surveys, which is great because they can be web-based, they can be on paper, they can be verbal, and that's something that all of us are looking for, different types of flexible tools and different types of flexible data collection. So I just put a couple of different web-based survey tools here: Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, Zoomerang, Lime Survey, Poll Everywhere. And I typically use Google Forms, SurveyMonkey, or Poll Everywhere in my class. But all of them are great, and they can be anonymous too, which is really nice. As far as the type of data goes, technically, surveys are a quantitative data collection tool, but they can also mimic qualitative data collection tools, in the sense that they can be used to find numbers and group students as numbers and percentages, and quantitatively, but they can also mimic qualitative data because those open-ended responses, that's not necessarily going to lead to a number. It's really going to lead to more narrative type responses, which is more on the qualitative side. So this is something that's kind of unique, and also really beneficial about surveys is that quantitative but also qualitative type of data. It can provide data from multiple participants in a quick way. You can give, every single student in your class the exact same survey and give them 10 minutes to respond, and then you've got a really nice, thorough, solid collection of data there. As far as quantitative data goes, it doesn't necessarily go as deep as qualitative data, but it is typically more accurate. However, because a survey is both quantitative and qualitative in nature, you really get a nice, well rounded conclusion at the end of your survey. Some strengths for surveys. These are kind of repeated thoughts that have come up already, but it really allows participants to give their own thoughts and feelings. Again, if we're trying to include students in their education, we want them to feel like they're able to voice their opinions. It also provides quick data that's typically more accurate and gives a little bit more variation. It can touch on that qualitative data again. And again, one of the biggest benefits of surveys is that it can be anonymous. Sites like SurveyMonkey, Poll Everywhere, or Google Forms, you don't have to collect any identifiers for the people who are participating. So they can be completely anonymous, which is great because if they're not, that's when we start to get into some of the weaknesses of surveys. If a survey is not anonymous, it does require an IRB, because you are having people give, their email or name or whatever in order to collect information from them. Also, the results may not be accurate depending on certain conditions. And I do talk about this in just a minute with my concerns, but results may not be accurate because if a student is concerned about a teacher finding out their answers, they may not give a true answer. They may give the answer that they think the teacher wants to hear. It can also be misleading or controlling in the sense that if you just have a closed response question, what is your favorite type of ice cream? And then you give four choices. If my favorite type isn't on there, I'm forced to choose something that isn't necessarily true. Open-ended responses, on the other hand, though, can lead to messy grouping by the researcher. If I've got 20 students and I give them an open-ended response, all 20 of them are going to say something different, which can make it harder for me to group them in a way that quantitative data typically leads to. And it must be proofread because if it's given with the intent to collect written responses or data, it can be inaccurate. So if you have a spelling error, that may change somebody's response. So you have to be really careful about proofreading. As far as validity and reliability and ethics goes, um, surveys are relatively valid, but participants may not respond to the survey in an honest way. So, as I said earlier, they may be scared of repercussions. Even if they're promised anonymity, they may be concerned that a teacher or researcher may find out that it was them who gave a response, and then they may be scared of those repercussions. They may also be harsher or easier depending on who's administering the survey. Maybe they don't like the person who's administering the survey, so they may not give honest responses. Also, sometimes students just fly through things. If the survey is not entirely anonymous, an IRB would need to be submitted, or the survey would not be ethically appropriate. And then also validity, again, if there are errors in written content, it can skew the data. So, as far as surveys go, they are, I think, a really great option. You do have to be careful about making sure that they are anonymous if you're going to use them in your action research plan or submitting an IRB if you don't want them to be anonymous. But I really think overall they're a great tool. There's a lot of different ways to administer a survey. And I think that they can lead to really, really helpful quantitative and qualitative data.